Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another installment of Ether Tale Radio Theater. Tonight, we're talking about the process of writing and the process of publishing. And I have a very special guest. Jerry Strayve is here. You might know him better as J.R. Strayve Jr. That's how his name appears on his books. Hello, Jerry.
Well, hello there. How are you, Scott?
Fine, thank you. You're just right there, but I'm pretending you're far, far away. I'm so excited to be holding your recently published book in my hand, First Spouse of the United States. And this book, strangely, is published now, but the book that we talked about last time you were here is not yet out. How does that happen? What was the title of this other book that was so fascinating to me, but I don't remember the title?
The book is called Braxton's Century.
And that one you had to do a lot of research for, and it's a historical drama that involved a lot of research, and it was very colorful. And I thought for sure that it was already out, but soon you say.
Yes.
And that does fascinate me. This world of publishing and self-publishing and writing. You know, how do you force yourself to live through the publishing process? You know, when do you finally get to see your book out there in people's hands? Now, the book that I'm holding in my hand right now, First Spouse of the United States, which is very topical in this Buttigieg time, this book is available. People can buy it now, right?
Yes, it's available on Amazon, Kindle. It's available at Barnes & Noble. And I did a book signing at Warwick's in La Jolla. It's there. So
as a brick and mortar store has it as a book. Excellent. Is it out on tape yet?
No, but interestingly, I was talking to a fellow today about that because it's extraordinarily expensive to do an audiobook. And if you're self-published like I am, you're looking at somewhere between $4,000 and $5,000. So I went ahead and did the Kindle initially, and obviously the paperback. And now I'm speaking with someone about doing the audiobook.
And the cover is very handsome. I know you're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but I do like the cover, and I think it.
Well, thank you. That was the whole idea. I wanted them to judge it and want to open it. So I hope they wanted to judge it favorably. It's rather dramatic.
Yes, there is even an ominous fighter jet that I just noticed that I didn't see a second ago.
Got the Medal of Honor on there, which is huge in the theme of the book, and then the White House. So it all comes together.
And so when you write, do you actually set your alarm clock? And
I set my alarm clock for stopping writing because I'm one of those people that when I get into it, hours literally go by. Everybody's familiar with the idea of a sixth sense, and I really do believe it because when you're really into it and you're engaged in whatever you're doing, everyone has that sixth sense that available. Most hopefully take advantage of it because that's where all the magic is. That's where all the neat ideas and thoughts and what have you come along. And so I have to set an alarm to stop.
Yes. And otherwise you're just forcing yourself and it's just not as creative, or?
I will miss appointments if I don't.
Oh, okay.
Or forget to
eat. Yeah, that's lose your health. Yeah, that's not good.
Right,
that's not good
right.
at all.
And part of writing too is you want to be at your best, and so I have to force myself to stop and get up and go for a walk just to get the circulation back because you can get kind of bogged down in mundane, unimportant things, and it's good to get out and clear your head.
So, do you treat this as a job? Do you actually keep a time card or at all? Or
this is interesting. I have a spreadsheet, and on the spreadsheet I have tasks that I've given myself, and I try to keep it reasonable because other things are going on in life, and I have other responsibilities, and so I come up with a goal, a realistic goal, and I try to adhere to it, but I don't beat myself up if I don't. It's just a way to guide to keep me on focus.
Yes, yeah, and so you don't have a goal of a certain number of pages or a certain number of words.
Yes, I do.
Oh, what are those goals? What do they look like?
Well, it depends. Like recently, I've been going through a very deep edit on Braxton's Century, which was finished 2 years ago, I think. Not quite. And I said, okay, I have to do X number of pages over a 30-day period. And I broke it up into I think it was about, in this case, I had to edit around 5,000 words per day. Sometimes it was 15,000 words per day. It just depended on the day and what my schedule was looking like. And then I would just track it. And when I got really behind, I made excuses for myself and didn't worry about it, or I caught up.
Yeah, you just did what you could about it.
Right.
And so these were words that you had already written, and you were just revisiting them.
Yes.
And maybe if that's a role that an editor might have, maybe someone's editor or someone's publisher would encourage you to be doing that and maybe laying out those tasks for you.
Now, for writing the first draft, sometimes I try to write a couple thousand words a day if I possibly can, or at least 10 to 15,000 words a week.
And do you have an outline of where the story is going, or?
I just did a interview for a magazine, Gay San Diego here, and that was one of the questions, and I went on and on about that. It says, I do not. Now, I do put together what we call a book map that will help you if there's chronological times you need to keep a hold of, or characters and specific about the characters, and highlights in each chapter. I don't do that like most do in the beginning. A lot of people will just plot the whole thing out and have that book map put together before they start writing. I write and then go back out and rebuild the book map and see where I have inconsistencies or things that I need to change about or hand over to my editors so they'll have a guide of where the story is going. But for instance, on Braxton Century, it has 43 chapters in it, and so it's page after page after page of book map, But in First Spouse United States, there's 23, and it's a smaller book map. But again, it's something that I don't map my stories out. I have an idea of where I want to go with it. I have a beginning and an anticipated end, and then I start writing. That can be a challenge when you're doing that because you start writing, and sometimes you go off into these tangents. For instance, right now I'm sitting on Braxton Century that has 161,000 words. Well, that's almost 3 books. So I have to get rid of some words, and that'll be part of the editing process. Now, if I was one of those writers that had it all mapped out and it's going to be X number of words per chapter and blah, 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 I wouldn't have to go there. But me as a creative, I feel that it stifles my ability to come up with interesting, perhaps going in directions I had never anticipated. So I don't want to be constricted by that.
Until you are, and then you do get rid of something.
Yeah,
but as you're writing it, you just go and go and go. And if one of the characters comes alive to you and starts making their own decisions, I guess you let that happen too.
Yes, and that can be rather dangerous because you end up with 2 protagonists or something in your story, and you're going, OMG, how did I get here? What am I going to do now?
Well, I guess you just kill someone off, I suppose.
Yes, excellent.
So you're busy with that first book, I'm still calling it a first book, even though it's not out yet.
That's my first manuscript.
Yes. And what secret project are you working on now, though? What do you think is going to happen next with your writing?
Okay. Well, first of all, First Spouse of the United States, if you read it, do not, I repeat, do not read the end of the book. It will destroy the book for you.
Okay, I won't do that. Some people do.
They do, and it's just terrible because I have a sequel coming out. And if I tell you what the sequel is for this book, I give you a title, which I will not, I give away the end. And so, and this goes back to what you asked me earlier about mapping things out. The story, the first book, First Spouse of the United States, did not go as far as I wanted it to. So I was forced to stop it because it was getting too long and prepare for a sequel.
Yes, okay. And now this is the interesting situation too. We were talking briefly earlier, and when you started this book, there wasn't a Mr. Buttigieg
No, there
around.
was not. Well, not that we were aware of, unless you lived in
in his state.
in
Yeah,
his state,
but
Indiana.
yeah, he was around, but just not on our landscape. And how much of it was a surprise to you that your very novel is now based in something right before us? Was that a surprise to you?
Not totally. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, part of it was. Let me tell you real quick what happened. When Hillary was running for president, we were all going around, okay, what are they going to call him? First dude, first guy, whatever. And first spouse of the United States was bandied about at that time. And I said, that's a good way to refer to the spouse of a president. I said, man, that would be really interesting if it was same sex. So as we know, things didn't work out too well for Hillary. And so I was kind of stuck there thinking, first spouse. So I decided I was going to write a story about two guys. But I wanted to take it from a different angle because people have written about a gay president fiction, right? But no one has ever written about the spouse.
Yes.
So I immediately went and copyrighted the name.
Excellent.
And then I started writing, and I was about a third of the way through the book when Mayor Pete announced his exploratory committee formation for running for president. So I said, oh my goodness, I have got to get my backside in gear here and finish this book because this is my idea. And so I did move along rather quickly after that and published it 3 weeks before he announced his candidacy.
And in fact, this book has a sort of a subtitle on the cover, First Spouse of the United States. And then this subtitle, Star Athlete and War Hero Battles Societal Boundaries and Washington Elite. It's really more of a summary than a subtitle, but there it all is. A little bit, certainly more heroic than Pete. So how much research did you have to do for this book? For the manuscript that's not published yet, which was a period drama. I'm sure there's tons of research, but how much research was involved with First Spouse?
I am going to correct you, and I hope you don't mind.
Okay.
Here we go. Braxton Century, when I wrote that book, I did not do 1 ounce of research. It all came out of my head.
Oh my!
Because I'm a history nut.
Oh yeah. You've spent your life doing the research.
I spent
in a
my
way.
life.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Now on First Spouse of the United States, I did not. Okay, I had to do some research because there were some interesting things. Because my characters end up at the Naval Academy, and I don't know a lot about the Naval Academy. While I visited it, and had a thought perhaps that might be a place to go one day, that I didn't. I never went, never made it, never even applied. But there are things that go on in the Naval Academy that I did not know about. So a friend of mine who was a Naval Academy graduate, he and I sat down and we talked about the Naval Academy and the life there and what the routine is like, and tried to get it as realistic as possible. So my friend Jim was very, very helpful. Then my protagonist becomes his name is Rocky Chambers, Ricardo Chambers. He becomes a Marine Corps F-18 fighter pilot. And I have some scenes, air combat scenes. And again, I've never flown an airplane. I've never been piloted an airplane. And a friend of mine, her husband is a recently retired Marine Corps fighter pilot, and he helped me through that part as well. So as a writer, having that technical support is vital to make it readable and believable. And so I'm so grateful for Larry and Jim and the help they gave me.
And speaking of readable, I just opened the book and I really like the font, and it's a little tiny bit bigger font than size too. It's subtle, but it which I kind of need. So I'm grateful to see it.
Scott, you would not believe the number of people who come and open the book and they go, "Oh my gosh, I love the size of the print," and buy the book.
And because they know they're going to be able to read it.
Right. Yeah. Nobody's intimidated by that microscopic print, right?
Yeah. And did you actually spend time choosing a font too, or just sort of happen?
Well, I'm self-published, so when I first got going on this, I used the Kindle publishing program, and they had some very basic fonts and what have you, and I figured, what is the one that's easiest to read? I said, it's not necessarily artistic or anything like that, but it's easy to read.
Yes, for
That was my
today's
choice.
readers, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm sure that changes from decade to decade. What is a font that's easy to read? But yeah, it looks great, and I'm ready to start reading.
Good.
Just like those people that you met who said, "Hey, I'm
Good.
going to buy this book."
Well, I have had a lot of wonderful feedback about. They say it's a page turner, and the fact that they say it's a page turner, that to me knew I'd done it right.
Good. I almost looked at the end, but I won't because you told me not to.
You better not.
Yes.
You're going to hate yourself.
So, what advice do you have for people who have started a book and they're feeling good about it, and they want to look into the self-publishing world? What advice do you have for them?
I think the best thing to do is, first of all, if you want to write a book, just start. Just go ahead and get started. Don't put it off. And if you find yourself somewhat, procrastinator kind of thing, give yourself a schedule. Make an appointment with yourself to write just a little bit. And you'll find just how much you just dive into it. It becomes just one of those things you can't wait to get back to. Now, what really made it work for me was I found a couple writer groups in the San Diego area. And for instance, every Tuesday night, I go to a writer group. Now, some of them are like once a month, twice a month, but I like the idea that I know that I have to have something ready every week.
To read to those people or have them read to you?
Yes. So I read it to them, and some of them are published, some of them are not, but they are dedicated to their writing. And they will then give me a critique, and then I critique them. So we have 4 or 5 people, and we sit and we work together. And every now and then I go out of there and said, "Oh, how did I write that schlock? These people are right. I'm awful. I'm never going to do it again."
Yes, I'm sure they
But
all
by the
feel
time
that
I
way.
get home, I realize, okay, they were right about that. So I'm very, very grateful. So First Spouse of the United States is a byproduct of their help, and I am so grateful, like I've said.
And these are sort of like civilian groups of,
Yes.
sort of like neighborhood, like
Right.
go to someone's home.
Well, no, we usually meet at a public restaurant. They don't mind us sitting there a couple hours, and we'll order something to eat. But we're business. We're there every day. We're there every Tuesday. Now, another very, very important thing is the San Diego Writers and Editors Guild. That is a group that meets once a month on a Monday, and they have just a wonderful collection of people that are in every aspect of publishing, being it editing, content editing, being it copyright, be it marketing, just a wealth of information which they're happy to share. So we have programs that last half hour I guess last about 45 minutes. But before that, if you like, they have a marketing group that gets together and we'll talk about marketing, because one of the essential things that people don't think a whole lot about is writing the book is probably easier than marketing it. If you are self-published, you are on your own. And I have found, for me, that to have been the most difficult, but at the same time, a very, I should say, enlightening. I've learned a lot. As an author, I wish I was picking my words better. But anyway, yeah, I've learned a lot, and I feel like I have a community with which I can rely upon, and at the same time pay forward by helping other writers.
And how did you find this small group that you meet with at that restaurant? How did you stumble across them?
Meetup.
Oh, so that's like a little social app.
Just went up on Meetup and found them. There are so many of them. And I just looked at them and I said, okay, first of all, was the day and the time convenient? And also, you can get a feel what the people are like. And I have been a member of 2 of them. I am now a member of 1 of them just because of my schedule.
Right. And some of these groups, I guess, are more like screenplay oriented, and some are more novel oriented.
Yeah, some might be more along the science fiction, or more about romance, or a memoir, or like you said, screenplay. So in our group, most of us are fiction. And in fact, all of us are fiction. And we have one fellow who is doing a screenplay, which I find really fascinating because it makes your brain work a little different when you're critiquing.
Yeah. So that, and when he reads, does it seem like a screenplay at the time? Does he when he brings his pages, is it truly a screenplay, or is it just more notes and conversation?
Well, what we do in this particular one, now some people will put their work in the cloud and you can review it before you go to the meeting, which I've been a part of a group that did that. But in this one, we all bring physical copies and pass them out. So you're
Yes.
actually reading it.
Yeah, on the spot.
On the spot. Yeah. Get that little red pen out and go to town.
Yes. Yeah, and I've been in groups too where they even, if it's more character driven, they actually have people read different characters.
You know, I haven't done that. I would think that would be very interesting,
Yeah.
particularly in the screenplay.
Yeah, certainly for that. So, what's the? Have they already seen some of the sequel to First Spouse?
Yes, they have.
Oh, and they're sworn to secrecy.
Yes. In fact, well, I stopped writing the sequel because I wanted to go back and finish the original manuscript, Braxton Century. And I said, okay, it's time to get this thing finished, or I was afraid I would never go back to it. And also, First Spouse of the United States is so timely because, like, we haven't really talked about it, but it's about a young man that is a junior in high school that is going to La Jolla High School. Again, this is fiction, and this is in the mid-'80s, and he's a football player, and he's a good student, and he basically has a challenge with his sexuality in his junior year. So that does not go well at all. It's a real challenge. And eventually when he graduates, he says, I'm getting out of Southern California, and he accepts his commission and accepts the appointment to the Naval Academy, and then goes to the Naval Academy, and he meets this guy by the name of Nick.
And things were different then.
Yes, things were very different then, and that's why I needed my Naval Academy friend to tell me about where these people who met each other who could go and get to know each other better.
Yes.
And so the story goes on where Nick becomes a JAG officer, a lawyer in the Navy, and Rocky becomes the fighter pilot. Long story short, eventually these guys get back together after a lot going on in the book, get married, and one of them gets elected president. So that's what makes it timely.
Yes.
And that is, while it's not necessary for me to finish the sequel at this time because this book is good through 2020.
Yep.
And I will then, in the meantime, publish the 2 volumes of Braxton Century, and will have completed the sequel.
So is that why First Spouse really is out there published? Because you really wanted to push yourself to be...
That's correct.
Because the topic is topical all of a sudden.
Yeah, I'm hoping that the presidential election for 2020 just gets people's interest so they would purchase the book because they can feel like they're reading along in some sort of parallel universe.
Yes. And the book that's still in manuscript form, that's historical drama.
Yes,
So that can come out anytime, can't it? So,
That can come out anytime, and it takes place between 1860 and 1960, hence Braxton Century. And I have already started a rough outline of a trilogy that picks up at the end of that book. But I don't want to confuse anybody and get into more of that.
Oh, okay.
But I'll give you the title since
okay.
I have copyrighted that.
Good for you.
too.
What is the title? What is entitled to be titled?
It is going to be called Millennial Moguls Unhinged.
Boy, I'm glad you copyrighted it because that sounds like something that could become a reality show very fast.
Yes. So I've got a lot of fun things going on, and I really enjoy doing it. But like you wanted to talk a little bit about the self-publishing. Self-publishing is probably the only option most people have, unless you're some sort of a celebrity or a politician's been thrown in jail or about to be thrown in jail. You're probably not going to get a mainstream publisher to come your way. So if you're interested in publishing, you want to get around a group and either look at doing the self-publishing, the hybrid, or the hybrid publishing. And the hybrid publishing is when you go out and pay a lot of money to someone who's set up to help you publish your book. I don't want to say a whole lot about that because it's a rather nebulous form or way of doing things. I think doing it yourself, while it is a lot of work, it takes a lot of dedication. You may make some mistakes along the way. It's a way for you to internalize exactly what you're doing while you're doing. So if you are continuing to write, you will continue to get better in the publishing process.
So, as you're writing, when do you start wondering about marketing? Does it happen sooner than you think or later than you think?
I am already thinking about marketing for Braxton Century, and I just sent it to my content editor. And that will take a couple months for the content editor and the copy editor to do the work. I am already putting together a plan to start marketing Braxton Century alongside First Spouse of the United States so that the writers, I beg your pardon, the readers will be more prepared for that book when it comes out. You couldn't be very prepared for First Spouse of the United States because I hadn't really written a book before and I didn't have a big publishing outfit to help me out, right? But now what I'll do is I'll go back and I'll use the email addresses and the social media that I already have in place for First Spouse and piggyback that with Braxton Century. And I will, I've already started putting that plan together and will actually get my readers involved in the publishing of Braxton Century as I go through the editing process.
Yeah, that's something new that I hadn't thought about. That, and that you are in the position to do that, aren't you?
Yeah.
Because of the way Kickstarters feel, and that's something new to me, where you get the customer involved early. In fact, I think for that historical fiction work, I think you even asked your fans to help pick the cover. What was it?
Yes, I did. Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up, Scott. It's so important. You know, we all have ideas about what we think something should look like. My first book, I mean, the first cover I came out for Braxton, what I was going to use for this book, First Spouse of the United States.
Yes.
I sent it around to a bunch of people, and they said, if you want to put yourself in a very limited niche market, go ahead. But if you send out what you've got on this cover, you're going to put some people off, and they will never have the opportunity to read what is a good book.
Uh-oh. What was it that was such a turnoff, I wonder?
A really hot guy.
Oh, okay. It just was too much. It was over
too
the top
much. It was a torso in it had a Marine Corps uniform on, and his torso and some perspiration, and you could just tell this is a real hot-shot Marine Corps
Okay, so that's
pilot.
when it becomes a mini-series. That's what they'll use. But
Yes,
at this point,
yes,
you want
yes.
your serious readers with you. Got
Because,
it.
you know, and when you write a book, you've got to figure out, what am I actually trying to do here? I'm telling a story, but am I telling a story just to tell a story, or am I telling a story to get a message across? And I have several messages in this book that it was vital for me to get through. And one of them, I suppose my biggest message is live an authentic life. And we've heard that before. You can remember the outed governor, James McGreevey, when he came out. He was governor of New Jersey years ago. He wrote a book called Confession. And I read that book. And the idea was live an authentic life. But I took a couple steps further in this book because I used some of my own experiences and wanted to emphasize the fact that if you don't live an authentic life, you are living a diminished life. Because so many people are hiding, they're in fear, and they're spending their energy trying to make sure that their little secret, whatever it is not going to come out. And it could be anything. It doesn't have to be anything in particular. But if you're not living who you are diminished, and your soul suffers.
That sounds like a great thing to keep in mind for these fictional characters, too. For various of characters in various books, is that they should all be striving to live an authentic life. Who else in this book is struggling, I wonder, besides the main character? What's one other secret somebody has that... Is there someone else that has a secret?
Yes. This is
or maybe you're not
good
supposed to tell
question.
yet.
Oh, yes. There's a character. There are two characters in there. You will meet them in the first chapter. That is a President Tanner and his wife, Josephine Tanner. The first chapter is actually in the story, takes place in the middle of the book, but I've placed it into the first chapter, and then I do a flashback to Rocky's high school years. So the Tanners have their own secret. They're powerful. The guy's president of the United States, and she's kind of like a Nancy Ron Reagan-esque or a Hillary Clinton combination of personalities.
Mm-hmm.
The woman behind the man kind of thing. And they have some very interesting secrets, and I'm not going to divulge them.
Okay, you won't. But did you plan them to be in that first chapter, or did you later switch it around?
They were a surprise.
Yes.
That's part of my not outlining.
Yep. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And they're one of my favorites. I have so much fun with their characters. I probably had more fun with their characters in the book than any other outside the protagonist. I mean, fascinating the way it works out. And some of the folks who've read it said, Jerry, you kept surprising me chapter after chapter that things were happening. I went, oh, good.
Excellent. That's why it's a page turner.
Yeah.
Well, this has been fantastic talking with you about First Spouse of the United States, J.R. Strayve Jr.'s book that's out there that you can buy. Mm-hmm. And there's already a sequel he's working on, and there's a historical fiction book that's soon to be available as well. So there's product out there to get. But now, if they wanted to buy this book right now, what do they do?
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm going to interject something.
What?
This Saturday, I'm going to be at Barnes & Noble in La Mesa, Grossmont, from 11 to 1 doing a book reading and a signing.
Excellent.
Okay.
So that's the Barnes & Noble in La Mesa this very weekend on Saturday, 11 to 1.
You can get the book at Barnes & Noble on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
You can get it.
Will you sign it for them?
I will be happy to sign for
Excellent.
it. And you can get it on Amazon. You can get it Kindle. And again, Barnes & Noble. Some libraries are carrying it. Again, it's kind of new. Some don't. And I'm part of the InstaSpark program where you can get it from a lot of various bookstores.
Now, if you're a time traveler, when we say this Saturday, we mean Saturday, September 14.
Yes.
So you time travelers out there,
Yes.
if you could go back and forward, and we're talking about September 14, 2019,
Yes.
just to let you know.
And if you go to my website, www.jr.
That's easier than time traveling.
Yeah, go to the website. I've got a list of events.
Very
I've
good.
got all kinds of events coming up.
And that's to see you live. And if you go to your website, you also probably are links on how to purchase the book. And again, what's that website of yours?
www.jrstrayvejr.com.
Very good. And Strayve rhymes with gravy, but it's spelled Strayve. So the website is jrstrayvejr.com.
Right.
And junior's just 2 letters.
Right.
Very good. All right. Well, this was great. I'm just so grateful to have you here at WSRadio.com here on Ethertail Radio Theater. J.R. Strayve Jr., thank you for joining me today.
Scott, thank you. It's been a real pleasure.